Hi, welcome back to our channel. We're Lawfully, and today we'll help you fill out Form I-134A as a supporter. First, we'll review who is an eligible beneficiary so you're sure that you can fill out this form on behalf of your potential beneficiary, and then we'll fill out the form. But before we continue, I'd like to let you know that I am not an attorney and that this video is not legal advice. In fact, it is based on publicly available information. Now, without further ado, let's work on the form. Okay, so first, let's remember who is an eligible beneficiary. USCIS states that qualified beneficiaries who are outside the United States and lack U.S. entry documents may be considered on a case-by-case basis for advanced authorization to travel and a temporary period of parole for up to 2 years for urgent humanitarian reasons or significant public benefit. To participate, eligible beneficiaries must have a supporter in the United States, undergo and clear robust security vetting, meet other eligibility criteria, and warrant a favorable exercise of discretion. Individuals participating in these processes must have a supporter in the United States who agrees to provide them with financial support for the duration of their parole in the United States. The first step in the process is for the US-based supporter to file a Form I-134A or the online request to be a supporter and declaration of financial support with USCIS for each beneficiary they seek to support, including minor children. The U.S. government will then review the supporter information provided in the Form I-134A to ensure that they are able to financially support the beneficiaries they are agreeing to support. Now, the filing process goes like this. Okay, so first, as always, you'll want to Google the Form I-134A, and it'll usually be the first result. Once you're there, scroll down and you'll see the File Online button. This will take you to the sign-in page where you can either log in or create an account, which is pretty straightforward. But if you already have one, you can use it too. In our case, we have already set up an account, so we just need to log in. Then we need to select what we want to do. For this, we'll click on the Go to My USCIS button. And this will take us to this page where we can select the form we wish to fill out. After we have selected the form I-134A, we can click on Start Form. And the page will show us some guidelines to read before we start. For example, they remind us the eligibility, the fee of the form, that is $0, so make sure you and your beneficiary pay $0 for this application. Then we have the documents we need to, or we may need to submit as evidence. And please read this carefully, so you're very well prepared even before filling out the form. And then we have the biometric services appointment and instructions after you have submitted the form. Let's see. It says you can track your case online, which is true. And you can also do it on your phone using Lawfully Case Tracker. I don't know if you knew that. Where you can simply add the case number and start tracking right away. The best part is that you won't have to visit the USCIS website anymore to check updates because you'll get all the notifications directly on your phone. It also says that you can respond to requests for information if they need further evidence. And lastly, you will eventually receive USCIS decision on your application. So basically, those are all the phases of the process. Then we can click Next and we will see more steps and instructions about completing the form online. First, we have filing online. Then they instruct us to complete the Getting Started section and ask us to provide as many responses as we can. They also say that they will automatically save our responses for 30 days from the day that you start filling it out. And finally, they tell us how to continue filling out our form. Then you can read the DHS Privacy Notice and the Paperwork Reduction Act. And now you can click on Start. The first question we need to answer is on whose behalf we're filing this form. And we can see that there's only one option, so we must click on that one. Next one says, I'm filing this form under one of the following. And since in this case we're filing for a parole process under the Cuba, Nicaragua, Haiti, and Venezuela parole process, we'll click on that one, which also works for the Uniting for Ukraine parole process. Then click on Next, and a new question will pop up that says, I am filing for an individual under the parole process for the following country. And you can select the country from the drop-down menu. Click on Next, and you'll see it says, is someone assisting you with completing this declaration? And in this case, nobody is assisting me, so I'll select No and click on Next. Now you can start completing the information about you, such as your current legal name. Then they ask, have you used any other names since birth? This means if you have ever used any aliases, maiden name, and nicknames. I'll select No on this one, but remember that this is just my example and that you have to complete the information according to what's true to you. After this, you'll be asked to provide the name of the organization, group, or individual that is providing support to the beneficiary with you, if any. In this case, we're doing it on our own, so we can leave this blank. Click on Next, and here you'll have to fill out your contact information. You have to provide your daytime and mobile telephone number. If they're the same, you can check out this box that says, this is the same as my daytime telephone number. Then provide your email address and your current mailing address. In case you have someone else who will receive your mail for you, you can put their name here in the in care of blank. But if you yourself will receive the mail, then you can just leave it blank. Continue with the country, address line 1 and 2, in case there are 2, city, state, and zip code. And lastly, they ask whether our mailing address is the same as the physical address. In my case, I'll select yes. Click on Next, and here we have more information about you, such as what is your date of birth. Remember to complete it in the month, day, year format. Then add your city or town of birth, your state or province of birth, and what is your sex. Here, I'd like you to pay close attention because you need to select the sex that is shown on your passport or other government-issued identity document. Okay, so once you do this, click on Next, and you'll have to keep filling out information about you, such as your current immigration status. Let's say that Anne is a US citizen, so I'll select that one. And remember that USCIS may reject your application if you have a non-immigrant status because they need to make sure that you can be in the US long enough to support your beneficiary. Then they ask you to provide an alien number, which if you are a US national, then you don't have one, as it is an alien number. So just check out the box that says, I do not have or know my A number. But if you are, let's say, a lawful permanent resident, then you will have to add it here. Remember, it is a 9-digit number. After this, provide your social security number if you have one. Ideally, if you are a supporter that meets all the eligibility criteria, you'd have a social security number. But if for some reason you don't, you can click or check out the box that says, I do not have a US social security number. And now you have to provide your USCIS online account number. But look, this says that you will only have an online account number if you have previously filed a form that has a receipt number that begins with IOE. But if you do not have a receipt number that begins with IOE, you do not have an online account number. And no, the online account number is not the same as an A number. So you can check out this box if you do not have an OAN. Then you have to specify your relationship to the beneficiary by selecting it from the drop-down menu. In my case, the beneficiary is Anne's cousin, so I'll select other family member. Alright, so click on next, and here you'll have to provide information about your employment. I'll select that Anne is employed because she works full-time. And remember that it won't look favorable if you are unemployed, not employed, or retired. So make sure you're careful with this one as well. Then you'll have to select your type of employment, whether you are currently employed or if you're currently self-employed. Since we selected employed, we have to state what Anne's job is. Let's say she's a translator, and the name of her employer is Translations Incorporated. Then we have to provide our current employer's address, same info as always, country, address lines, city or town, state, and zip code. Next, you'll need to provide all of the information requested in the table below about yourself and all of your dependents, and any other individuals you financially support. But do not include any individuals listed in the beneficiary's financial information section. So let's click on Add Entry, and remember, you'll be filling out information about yourself. So the first question is, what is the individual's full name? Second is about the date of birth. Third is about the individual's or supporter's relationship. But since this entry is about yourself, you need to check out the box that says, I'm entering my own financial information. And lastly, you need to state how much income you will contribute to the beneficiary annually. Let's say Anna can contribute with a total of $30,000 annually. Once we're done, we can start adding more information about the rest of the individuals that are Anne's dependents. Again, add their full name, date of birth, relationship to the individual agreeing to financially support the beneficiary. Let's say Charlotte is her mother. And then you'll have to state how much income this individual will contribute to the beneficiary annually. And since the beneficiary is her niece, let's say she can contribute with $15,000 annually. And let's add one last entry, who will be Anne's brother. Same thing, we have to add name, date of birth, relationship, and how much income this individual will contribute. Now we can sum the total number of dependents, which in this case is 2, because it's the mom and the brother. And lastly, let's add the total income, which in this case is $45,000, right? Because Anne will contribute with $30,000 and the mother then with click on next and these two questions will appear. First one says, does any of the income listed come from an illegal activity or source such as proceeds from illegal gambling or illegal drug sales? And of course, we like to do all things lawfully. And Anne has a legal job. So we'll select no. And the second question says, does any of the income listed above come from means-tested public benefits as defined in 8 CFR 213A.1? This means that if the income that you listed comes from public benefit, you'll have to select yes, but this will not be favorable for your application, so be careful. In Anne's case, none of the income comes from means-tested public benefits, so I'll select no. Now let's click on next and we'll be taken to another part of the form where we'll have to write full sentences about what we're being asked. First one says you're responsible for receiving, maintaining, and supporting the beneficiary for the duration of their temporary stay in the U.S. Describe the resources you plan to use or provide to ensure the beneficiary has adequate financial support to cover basic living needs. It may be better to be relatively vague rather than giving out too much information in these questions, because you never know if this will be detrimental. So just answer what you're being asked without going into further details. Second question says that you are responsible for ensuring the beneficiary has safe and appropriate housing for the duration of their parole in the U.S. Describe how you will ensure that the beneficiary's housing needs are met, including where the beneficiary will reside during their temporary stay in the U.S. if known. I am adding these answers according to Anne's case, but remember that you have to type your very own information. And third, it says you are responsible for assisting the beneficiary's access to available services and benefits such as learning English, securing employment opportunities once authorized to work, enrolling children in school, and helping to enroll for benefits for which they are eligible. Describe what steps you plan to take as part of these responsibilities. So let's say that Anne will help her beneficiary find a job, will find an English course, and will have the beneficiary's documents translated in case she needs that. Next, we need to provide information about any assets you will use to support the beneficiary for the anticipated period of his or her stay. List only assets that can be converted into cash within 12 months and that will be used to support the beneficiary while they are in the U.S. You may also include your household members' assets below. Attach evidence in the evidence section under proof of assets and bonds showing that you or your dependents have these assets. First, we need to add the entry, then the name of the holder, and let's say that Anne has saved up to $50,000 and that she will use this to support the beneficiary for the anticipated period of his or her stay. Since it's only that, we'll say that the total amount is $50,000. Then we have to answer this question that says, have you previously submitted a Form I-134A on behalf of a person other than the beneficiary listed on this Form I-134A? And in our case, our answer is negative. And now we have entered into the section about the beneficiary. First thing, like always, is to complete their current legal name, which is In this case, Sofia, and her last name is Gonzalez. Then they ask whether the beneficiary has used any other names since birth, and in this case, I'll select no. Click Next and fill out the beneficiary's contact information. First comes the daytime telephone number and then mobile telephone number. But remember, if they're the same, just click or check out this box. Then we have to provide the beneficiary's email address. And by the way, make sure that you, as a supporter, provide your own email address. Make sure there are no errors and also provide your beneficiary's own email address so both can receive the proper information that USCIS will send you. Then fill out your beneficiary's current mailing address, which of course has to be outside the US. In this case, Sofia is in Colombia. So let's put it here. City, state, and zip code. And here we have to select if it's the same as the physical mailing address. I'll select yes. Next, we have to complete her birth date information in the month, date, year format, her city or town of birth, state or province of birth, and country of birth. And next, we have one of the most important questions of this process. This is the newest question that USCIS has added to the form. It says, a grant of parole is a discretionary determination granted on a case-by-case basis for urgent humanitarian reasons or significant public benefit. Please explain why a favorable exercise of discretion is merited for this individual. And I would like to take a minute to explain this, because basically this answer will decide whether your beneficiary is granted parole or not, since the US government needs to know whether this person is under urgent humanitarian circumstances or if this person will be of significant public benefit for the US. So, depending on the case, you can explain why this person needs a grant of parole so urgently. Maybe they have received death threats back in their home country, or you can explain the level of suffering if parole is not granted. Be as detailed as possible. And you can also explain why this person would be of significant public benefit. Let's say your beneficiary is a well-known doctor or professor in their city or country, and that they will be able to contribute to the US with vast knowledge about X or Y. You have a minimum of 750 characters to explain all of this, and a maximum of 1500. So take advantage of the space you're given. I'll type all of this, but for time reasons, I'll just write a short sentence. Now we have to answer what the beneficiary's sex is. Sophia is a female, so I'll select that one. Remember that you must select the sex that is shown on the beneficiary's passport or other government-issued identity document. Then let's answer what is her marital status, which in this case, let's say she's widowed. Then the beneficiary's country of citizenship or nationality, the country that issued her most recently issued passport, her passport number. Then you have to confirm that number. What is the expiration date of the beneficiary's passport? And alien number, if any. And what is the beneficiary's anticipated period of stay in the US? You can just estimate when the beneficiary will arrive in the US and put it here, where it says from. You can leave the rest of it blank because you don't know when the end date of the parole is. Next, let's fill out the beneficiary's financial information. It says, provide information about the income of the beneficiary, all of the beneficiary's dependents, and any other individuals the beneficiary financially supports. Do not include any individuals named in the financial information about the individual agreeing to financially support the beneficiary section. Just like before, we'll need to add an entry for the beneficiary and the dependents, if any. So let's add an entry. Let's complete the individual's full name, which in this case is Sophia's, her birth date or date of birth. Leave the relationship section blank because you're filling out Sophia's own information. And then how much this individual will contribute, which may be zero. But if they have a job in another country, then you can add their income here. In this case, I'll put zero. Let's save entry and move on to the next section that asks about the total number of dependents, which in this case is zero. Click Next, and we have the questions that we answered a bit ago about money proceeding from an illegal activity or source such as illegal gambling or illegal drug sales. I'll select No. And the next one says, does any of the beneficiaries' total income come from means tested public benefits as defined in 8 CFR 213A.1? The answer will also be no. And now we have to complete information about the beneficiary's assets. Remember, you need to provide the current cash value of any assets available to the beneficiary for the expected period of his or her stay. List only assets that can be converted to cash within 12 months and that will be used to support the beneficiary while the beneficiary is in the US. Also, you may include the net value of the beneficiary's home as an asset. If you list the net value of the beneficiary's home, then you must include documentation demonstrating that the beneficiary owns the home, a recent appraisal by a licensed appraiser, and evidence of the amount of all loans secured by a mortgage, trust deed, or other lien on the home. Attach evidence in the evidence section under proof of beneficiary's assets and bonds showing that the beneficiary has these assets. So let's say that Sophia actually has a house that is worth $30,000 and that she also has another one that is worth $15,000. Now let's add the total amount in US dollars, which is $45,000. And now we can move on to the evidence part, where we'll have to provide a statement from an officer of the bank or other financial institutions with deposits identifying the following details: date account opened, total amount deposited for the past year, and present balance. As the person who agrees to financially support the beneficiary, you must show you have sufficient income or financial resources to support the beneficiary. And remember to read the file requirements first before uploading your file. In here, you can choose or drop files to upload. Make sure they are in PDF formats. Next, since Anne is employed, we'll have to upload this type of evidence as well. Just make sure to follow these instructions. Then you'll need to provide a copy of the last US federal income tax return filed, that is your tax transcript, which you can retrieve from the IRS website. Moving on, if you have bonds, then you'll need to provide a list containing serial numbers and denominations of bonds in name of recent owners. For this, you'll need to upload evidence. Then you'll have to upload proof of immigration status. And make sure you read this first. It says, a U.S. citizen or U.S. national may submit a copy of a birth certificate, certificate of naturalization, certificate of citizenship, consular report of birth abroad to U.S. parents, or a copy of the biographic data page on your U.S. passport. So since Anne is a US national, she'll upload a copy of her birth certificate. Next, we'll need to provide proof of assets of the individual agreeing to financially support the beneficiary, which in Anne's case is her savings. So we'll upload evidence of her savings. And remember that you need to read all of this carefully in case you need to submit evidence about a property. And the last part of this section requires us to add proof of beneficiary's assets. Since Sophia has two properties, we'll add all the evidence regarding them. Next, in case we need to add any additional information, we can do so here. Let's see what this says. If you need to provide any additional information for any of your answers to the questions in this form, enter it into the space below. You should include the questions that you are referencing. If you do not need to provide any additional information, you may leave this section blank. Next, let's review and submit our application. They ask us to check our declaration before we submit it. And look what it says here. We encourage you to provide as many responses as you can throughout the declaration. Missing or incomplete information may slow down the review process after you submit your declaration. Then it shows your fee, which for this application is 0. Again, no supporter or beneficiary needs to pay for this application. And then we have the alerts and warnings section that will look like this if you have one or more alerts and warnings based on the information you provided in your declaration. A red alert means you have incomplete responses or inconsistent data. You cannot submit your declaration with any alerts. And here you can directly go to the section that you need extra work on. So you can go back and correct everything. And once you do, it'll look like this if you have no alerts and warnings anymore. This is the message you'll want to read. We found not alerts or warnings in your declaration. And it's in color green. Now we can click Next and we can review the whole declaration. You can even see a snapshot view of it if you download it. And if you scroll down, you'll see all your answers so you can review them one last time. Here's a PDF view of the application. And now we can click on Next, so we agree to financially support the beneficiary statements. This box says I can read and understand English and have read and understood every question and instruction on this declaration and my answer to every question. Let's check it and click Next. Now we're taken to the certification that you can carefully read on your own. And once you do, you can check out this box. So then we can proceed to sign the certification. We just need to type in our full legal name. And lastly, we click Next, so we submit our declaration by clicking on the blue button that says Submit the I-134A, which I won't do because this was only an example. And that's it. You've completed all your Form I-134A. Make sure to review it as many times as you want before submitting it. So that was all for today, but I wouldn't want to finish this video without reminding you that you can track your I-134A application with Lawfully Case Tracker app. If you're not using it already, you can download it on the App Store or Google Play.